Well, hello, 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 hello. I am AnneHumphrey, your transformational life coach and speaker, and also the creator of the Science of Getting Rich Mindset and Mastermind group right here on Facebook. So today I am so excited. It is Saturday, June 1st, 2019, because you're in for a treat. I will be reading live tonight, Chapter 6 by Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. So let's do a few little housekeeping right now. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe below and to be able to give us a thumbs up. And more importantly, share your comment below as to what resonated with you most during this reading. And for those of you who are part of the Facebook Live group here on Facebook that I'm doing this live right now, please be sure to get engaged, be engaged, share in the chat as to what passage, what words resonated with you most, because I would like to hear from you. And for those of you who are not aware of the group, you can easily join us at www.facebook.com/groups/the Science of Getting Rich with Anne. And also the link will be below for you YouTubers. So let's jump right in. Again, this is Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. I love to show it, by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Wallace D. Wattles. Okay, there we go. And we're going to be reading Chapter 6, How Riches Come to You. Again, I got to show it. There you are. Chapter 6, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. This is a profound chapter. A profound chapter. Let's jump right in. When I say that you do not have to drive sharp bargains, I do not mean that you do not have to drive any bargains at all, or that you are above the necessity for having any dealings with your fellow men. I mean that you will not need to deal with them unfairly. You do not have to get something for nothing, but can give to every man more than you take from him. You cannot give every man more in cash market value than you take from him, but you can give him more in use value than the cash value of the thing you take from him. The paper, ink, and other material in this book may not be worth the money you pay for it, but if the ideas suggested by it bring you thousands of dollars, you have not been wronged or by those who sold it to you. They have given you a great use value for a small cash value. Let us suppose that I own a picture by one of the great artists, which in any civilized community is worth thousands of dollars. I take it to Baffin Ray and by salesmanship induce an Eskimo to give a bundle of furs worth $500 for it. I have really wronged him, for he has no use for the picture. It has no use value to him. It will not add to his life. But suppose I give him a gun worth $50 for his furs, then he has made a good bargain. He has use for the gun. It will get him many more furs and much food. It will add to his life in every way. It will make him rich. When you rise from the competitive to creative plane, you can scan your business transactions very strictly. And if you are selling any man anything which does not add more to his life than the thing he gave you in exchange, you can afford to stop it. You do not have to beat anybody in business. And if you are in a business which does beat people, get out of it at once. Give every man more in use value than you take from him in cash value. Then you are adding to the life of the world by every business transaction. If you have people working for you, you must take from them more in cash value than you pay them in wages. But you can so organize your business that it will be filled with the principle of advancement. And so that each employee who wishes to do so may advance a little every day. You can make your business do for your employees what this book is doing for you. You can conduct your business that it will be a sort of ladder by which every employee who will take the trouble may climb to riches himself. And given the opportunity, if he will not do so, it is not your fault. And finally, because you are to cause the creation of your riches from formless substance, which permeates all your environment, it does not follow that they are to take shape from the atmosphere and come into being before your eyes. If you want a sewing machine, for instance, I do not mean to tell you that you are to impress the thought of a sewing machine on thinking substance until the machine is formed without hands, in the room where you sit or elsewhere. But if you want a sewing machine, hold the mental image of it with the most positive certainty that it is being made or is on its way to you. After once forming the thought, have the most absolute and unquestioning faith that the sewing machine is coming. Never think of it or speak of it in any other way than as being sure to arrive. Claim it as already yours. It will be brought to you by the power of the supreme intelligence, acting upon the minds of men. If you live in Maine, it may be that a man will be brought from Texas or Japan to engage in some transaction which will result in your getting what you want. If so, the whole matter will be as much to the man's advantage as it is to yours. Do not forget for a moment that the thinking substance is through all, in all, communicating with all, and can influence all. The desire of thinking substance for fuller life and better living has caused the creation of all the sewing machines already made. And it can cause the creation of millions more, and will, whenever men set it in motion by desire and faith, and by acting in a certain way. You can certainly have a sewing machine in your house, and it is just as certain that you can have any other thing or things which you want and which you will use for the advancement of your own life and the lives of others. You need not hesitate about asking largely. It is your Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom, said Jesus. Original substance wants to live all that is possible in you, and wants you to have all that you can or will use for the living of the most abundant life. If you fix upon your consciousness the fact that the desire you feel for the possession of riches is one with the desire of the omnipotence for more complete expression, your faith becomes invincible. Once I saw a little boy sitting at a piano and vainly trying to bring harmony out of the keys. And I saw that he was grieved and provoked by his inability to play real music. I asked him the cause of his vexation, and he answered, I can feel the music in me, but I can't make my hands go right. The music in him was the urge of original substance, containing all the possibilities of all life. All that there is of music was seeking expression through the child. God, the one substance, is trying to live and do and enjoy things through humanity. He is saying, I want hands to build wonderful structures, to play divine harmonies, to paint glorious pictures. I want feet to run my errands, eyes to see my beauties, tongues to tell mighty truths, and to sing marvelous songs, and so on. All that there is a possibility is seeking expression through men. God wants those who can play music to have pianos and every other instrument, and to have the means to cultivate their talents to the fullest extent. He wants those who can appreciate beauty to be able to surround themselves with beautiful things. He wants those who can discern truth to have every opportunity to travel and observe. He wants those who can appreciate dress, to be beautifully clothed, and those who can appreciate good food, to be luxuriously fed. He wants all these things because it is himself that enjoys and appreciates them. It is God who wants to play and sing and enjoy beauty and proclaim truth and wear fine clothes and eat good foods. It is God that worketh in you to will and to do, said Paul. The desire you feel for riches is the infinite seeking to express himself in you as he sought to find expression in the little boy at the piano. So you need not hesitate to ask largely. Your part is to focalize and express the desires to God. This is a difficult point with most people. They retain something of the old idea that poverty and self-sacrifice are pleasing to God. They look upon poverty as a part of the plan, a necessity of nature. They have the idea that God has finished his work and made all that he can make, and that the majority of men must stay poor because there is not enough to go around. They hold to so much of this erroneous thought that they feel ashamed to ask for wealth. They try not to want more than a very modest competence, just enough to make them fairly comfortable. I recall now the case of one student who was told that he must get in mind a clear picture of the things he desired, so that the creative thought of them might be impressed on formless substance. He was a very poor man, living in a rented house and having only what he earned from day to day. And he could not grasp the fact that all wealth was his. So, after thinking the matter over, he decided that he might reasonably ask for a new rug for the floor of his best room, and coal stove to heat the house during the cold weather. Following instructions given in this book, he obtained these things in a few months. And then it dawned upon him that he had not asked enough. He went through the house in which he lived and planned all the improvements he would like to make in it. He mentally added a bay window here and a room there until it was complete in his mind as his ideal home, and then he planned its furnishings. Holding the whole picture in his mind, he began living in the certain way and moving toward what he wanted. And he owns the house now and is rebuilding it after the form of his mental image. And now, with still larger faith, he is going on to get greater things. It has been unto him according to his faith, and it is so with you and with all of us. Wow, this concludes the book read of chapter 6 from The Science of Getting Rich by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, How Riches Come to You. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, look at this. Oh my goodness, just look. Sometimes I think the words have to permeate and penetrate through the screen. As Mr. Wallace D. Wattles would say, I love using those words now, permeate and penetrate. And the reason why I like to show it on the screen, because I just have this idea. I just really truly believe that if you hear it, you read it, and you see it, there's three things. That's the Trinity. There are three things that's happening to you, whether you're still hustling with yourself, whether you're still trying to believe, whether you're still trying to gather and muster up some faith that all of this stuff is true. But what happens is when you see it, when you hear it, when you read it, things begin to manifest all around you. And then you will begin to see that this actually works. Ladies and gentlemen, you have nothing to lose. The Science of Getting Rich by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. He has already done everything for us. He has done the thinking for us. There is nothing for us to think about. We don't have to figure it out. We don't need a code. We don't need to crack the code. We don't need someone else to crack the code. He did it in 1910, ladies and gentlemen. There is no reason why you shouldn't be reading this book. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Let me tell you, I say this in every video. I'm not asking you to do anything more than what I am willing to do. I listen to the audio. First of all, I re-listened to myself. As you already know, now I'm up to chapter 6. So I re-listened to my audio. Then I listened to the other audio that I found on YouTube. Listen to it. Just let it permeate and penetrate my soul. And then I have the book. I'm always highlighting, underlining, and putting the pieces together of my puzzle. Let me just kind of recap a couple of things in this chapter, as I always like to do. There's a lot of things he said in How Riches Come to You, but I want to start off with the very top. The first paragraph. I mean, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, he comes out of the gate. When I say that you do not have to drive sharp bargains, I do not mean that you do not have to drive any bargains at all, or that you are above the necessity for having any dealings with your fellow men. I mean that you will not need to deal with them unfairly. You do not have to get something for nothing, but can give to every man more than you take from him. How many of you out there know a lot of takers? They're constantly taking. Well, because they don't believe, they don't know. They believe in scarcity. They believe that there's not enough. They believe that if I got to get over on you before you get over on me. See, that's a mindset, people. That is a mindset. And as I said at the very beginning, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says you've got to get out of that competitive plane. He says it right here in chapter 6. He reiterates it again. Let me find it for you. Still, right here. See my little squiggy? See my little orange? I'm going to read that area to you. Once again, when you rise from the competitive to the creative plane, you can scan your business transactions very strictly. And if you are selling any man anything which does not add more to his life than the thing he gave you in exchange, you can afford to stop it. You do not have to beat anybody in business. And if you are in a business which does beat people, get out of it at once. He is telling you. There are some of you guys who are working in different fields. I like to, and that's beating people, that are beating people every single day, beating people, innocent people. A few months ago, last year, either it was last year or the very beginning of this year, I shared something that was on my soul to share. And I shared about the time in my early 20s when I was interviewing and looking for work. And this humongous insurance company had called me up and said, hey, you know, we're really impressed with your resume. We would really like for you to come in and, you know, take the next steps. So I was just so excited, so thrilled. I was like, yes, this would be a great industry for me to learn, for me to grow, for me to make profits, all these beautiful things. So I go in and I am speaking with a young lady who's very nice, who's very kind. She interviewed me. We went through the whole process. And then towards the ending of my interview process, she says, Anne, I have one more step for you to do. And she walks me into this other area where they just had computers. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do the next step, whatever that is. And she says, well, I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Myers-Briggs Test? And I said, no, what is a Myers-Briggs? And she said to me, she says, well, it's a personality test. It will tell us a lot about who you are and your personality. And, you know, but be comfortable. Don't be afraid. There's no right or wrong answers. Just answer truthfully. Find the answer that best suits you. So I sat down. I took the test. I felt very good. I was like, oh, I love this personality test. So then she says, okay, AnneHumphrey, what we'll do, we'll give you a call back in a week or so because we have to have someone to review this, to review your results. Because again, I still didn't know what my results was. I just had taken the test via the computer. And she says, well, we will be back in touch with you. I said, okay, great. So I walk out of her office. And I believe it was probably like a week or so later. I can't really remember because it was, you know, some time ago. And this was during the time when they had cassette tapes. So for those of you who don't know what cassette tapes are, that was during the time when they had cassette tapes. So I'll tell you why I said that about cassette tapes. So she calls me back into her office and she says to me, she says, oh, Anne, I really wanted to speak with you. I'm so glad that you were able to make it today. And I am thrilled. I'm like, oh yeah, I got the position. I'm excited. I'm going to learn more about life insurance. And so I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And so she says to me, she says, well, Anne, you remember that test that I told you about, you know, that there was no right or wrong answers, that you just had to answer truthfully, and that I said that we were going to send your information over to someone else so they can review it and then they can tell us. And I said, oh, yes, 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 yes. And she says, well, we have the results. And she says, and the results are here. So I'm sitting in front of her, and she's got these cassette tapes, and she has like this paper. And she says, well, the gentleman, I forgot his name, the gentleman who reviewed your personality test, which was the Myers-Briggs test, she says, although you are an extrovert, you love helping people, you love people, you really want to be able to help people, and although those things are wonderful, he said that you would not be a great fit for this life insurance company. And I was perplexed. I said, but wait a minute, you just told me all the wonderful things as to why I would be a great fit. And she says to me, she says, well, he said, the reason why you would not make a great fit for this life insurance company is because you won't sell anything to just anyone. So I'm looking at her again, perplexed, and I'm saying, but why would I? If they don't need it, if it does not help them, then why would I sell something to someone that they don't need? And more importantly, I'm thinking about if someone did that to my mother and my father, which they had. They had already did it to my mother and father, okay? And I said, I would not want this to happen to them. So she said, well, Anne, I'm sorry. We can't hire you because you won't just sell anything to anyone. And I'm sharing this story to you is because of the fact my 20 plus year old self, I don't know how old I was. I know I was in my 20s. I walked out of that office with my head up high. And I said, thank God that I was not hired. Because if you're wanting me to sell something to someone that they don't need, then I'm doing exactly what Wallace D. Wattles is speaking about. I would be in a business which beats people and don't care about people. And guess what? If a company says, hey, AnneHumphrey, we cannot have you to work for us because you're just not going to sell anything to anyone, then by golly, by George, thank God you didn't hire me. Because even though I did not know this science, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles and his technology and his methodology, I knew within myself, just by growing up with parents who did lots in the community, who helped lots in the community. And my father and my mother never had to beat anyone. And abundance and prosperity came to them lavishly. So I said that because I want to share some real life stories with you. And for those of you who are going to be watching this in a replay, share your comments below, because I know I'm not the only person that had to make a decision to say, hey, am I going to beat someone to make this money? Or am I going to keep my integrity and know that abundance and prosperity is all around me? Share your comments below. Thank you guys for listening. I want to go through a couple of other things as I always like to do. I like to share some other juicy, beautiful nuggets that Mr. Wallace D. Wattles shares in the upcoming book of The Science of Getting Rich. The Science of Getting Rich by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Again, I always like to share this and show this because I want everyone to know that I am giving Mr. Wallace D. Wattles his props, because this didn't come from me. This is not my book. This belongs to Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. That was written back in 1910. So if you're in the group, the other day I shared this. And I had asked some of you to share what stands out to you. And a lot of things in this book stands out to me, but I would like to share what I shared the other day in the group because it is so profound. And this is taken from chapter 16. Chapter 16 is called Some Cautions and Concluding Observations by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Look at that. Some cautions and concluding observations, chapter 16. Okay? All right. So the area that I'm going to be reading from is right here. And I'm going to show that to you where it says study. See where it says study? Study this book. That's where I'm going to read from. Okay. It says, study this book. Make it your constant companion until you have mastered all the ideas contained in it. While you are getting firmly established in this faith, you will do well to give up most recreations and pleasure, and to stay away from places where ideas conflicting with these are advanced in lectures or sermons. Do not read pessimistic or conflicting literature or get into arguments upon the matter. Do very little reading outside of the writers mentioned in the preface. Spend most of your leisure time in contemplating your vision and in cultivating gratitude and in reading this book. It contains all you need to know of the science of getting rich. And you will find all the essentials summed up in the following chapter. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, he gives us exactly what we need to do. He tells us what to do. Listen, I am doing exactly what the book says. This is my companion. I am learning it. I am reading it. I am rereading it. I am studying it. I am adding to my puzzle. I'm not asking you to do something that I'm not willing to do. People can tell me a quote in this book, and I can pretty much say which chapter that came out of, because I am not only reading this book, I am committing it to memory. I am mastering what this book says. See, ladies and gentlemen, I already know. I already know this is my time. I already know that I must continue to live lavishly. You see, my why is simple. My mother and my father tapped into something. They tapped into something when I was younger. I saw it. I was in the midst of it. I smelt it. It smelled good. I loved the fine clothes and the houses and the cars and the places that we went. I saw it. I was around it. I embraced it. It embraced me. The difference is that although my mother and my father tapped into a science, see, I used to call it a system, but now I realize it was a science. They tapped into something that they did not have the full code for. They tapped into it, but they didn't have the full code. And that is my job. My job while reading this is to uncover it so that I can teach you and others how to do the same thing, because I am not coming from a competitive plane. I am coming from the creative plane, and I know that there is an abundance of prosperity, an abundance of money, an abundance of whatever it is that you want. I can't get what is for you. You cannot have what is for me. It won't happen that way. We weren't created that way. It's not that way. It's not that kind of system. And the more that you begin to understand that, that no one can beat you. No one can take what is yours. No one can beat you to that land that you're supposed to be building your house on. Because if you haven't built your house on that land and someone else did, that wasn't your land. Find something else. Go find some more land, because that wasn't your land. Don't get perplexed. Don't get upset. Don't doubt. Don't begin to say, oh my goodness, everybody is beating me, everybody else. What does he say later in the chapter? He says, you don't have to have wishful eyes for someone else's. You don't have to have wishful eyes, because once you understand that everything is coming from a formless substance, that it is our job, our creative way of creating from the formless substance all the things that we want, everything that we desire, everything that we fathom, everything that we dream about, we can create it ourselves. Then the talk or that rhetoric will be no more. No one else would say someone took something from me, because you realize they didn't take it. It really wasn't yours. So you got to create yours from the formless substance and get out of the competitive mindset. Let me read another area here just before we wrap up. I get so excited. I know, I can tell. I know that you're probably saying, Anne, for everybody who's looking at this on replay, you're going to say, Anne gets so excited. She's so deep about this. Yes, because I get it. And I want you to get it too. I want you to know that everything that you want wants you. It's just that simple. Let me reiterate what he said about the gentleman. He says in chapter 5, I recall now the case of one student who was told that he must get in mind a clear picture of the things he desired, so that the creative thought of them might be impressed on formless substance. He was a very poor man living in a rented house. Did you hear that? Listen to it. He was a very poor man who lived in a rented house and having only what he earned from day to day. We know what that is, paycheck to paycheck, okay? And he could not grasp the fact that all wealth was his. How many people you know that you see and you say, you guys don't get it? Let me pause here. Let me put a pin here. I ran across a gentleman during my journey, and he and I would talk all the time. And something he would say to me all the time. He would say to me, he says, AnneHumphrey, you have acres and acres and acres of diamonds all around you. How many of you know that you too have acres and your own acres and acres of diamonds all around you? How many of you know that? Or how many believe, no, I don't have acres and acres of diamonds. I got to go and steal somebody else's diamonds or somebody else's acres. You've got to know this, folks. So let's go back to the book. He says, and he could not grasp the fact that all wealth was his. So after thinking the matter over, he decided that he might reasonably ask for a new rug for the floor of his best room and an coal stove to heat the house during the cold weather. Following instructions given in this book, he obtained these things in a few months. And then it dawned upon him that he had not asked enough. He went through the house in which he lived and planned all the improvements he would like to make in it. He mentally added a bay window here and a room there until it was complete in his mind as his ideal home. And then he planned its furnishings. Listen, folks, I don't know what else to tell you. See, it's right there, right there. Look at it. Read it. Read it. It's right there. I don't know what else to tell you, folks. Let me finish. Holding the whole picture in his mind, he began living in the certain way and moving toward what he wanted. And he owns the house now. Wow. Do you remember? It says that he was very poor and he was renting. So he went from very poor to renting to now owning the house. And is rebuilding it after the form of his mental image. And now, with still larger faith, he is going on to get greater things. It has been unto him according to his faith, and it is so with you and with all of us. Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. We were never taught this. We were never taught this technology. We were never taught this science. We were never taught this methodology. No more excuses, people. We're living in the 21st century where everything is right there at our grasp. This is our time. This is our time. We don't have to worry about anybody else unlocking the code or sharing the code, or it's a secret, or you have to be a part of this group, or you have to be a part of this club. If you're not a part of this club, they won't tell you. You don't need it. You have all the answers right here by Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. This is not a club. This is not a high society. This is not a fraternity or sorority that you need to be in. This is not a private group. The answers are right here. All you have to do is pick it up, read it, let it permeate and penetrate through your souls every day, and believe and have faith that it is happening right then and there, and have fun with it and start creating from the formless substance, and let the formless substance do what it was there to do, to create the things from your mind into a reality. As I said before, I've been talking to all kinds of people. PhDers, politicians, mothers, fathers, hardworking men like my father who's in construction, all kinds of people, all walks of life, who've never heard of this book, who has no idea what I'm speaking about. No idea. And they say, wait a minute, Ann, I feel like I've been duped. This book has been around since 1910 and no one's ever said anything? Yeah, this book has been around since 1910. And Mr. Wallace D. Wattles transitioned August 15, 1911. So he had something upon his life, that he had a calling to make sure that this book was out and it could permeate and penetrate for worlds to come. Mr. Wallace D. Wattles was born so then AnneHumphrey can get this in her hands now. And I want to say this again. I want to thank the gentleman who told me about this book a couple of years ago. If it was not for him, if it was not for him sharing and not being in the competitive mindset and being in the creative mindset, he would have never told me about this book. But because he is a creator himself, he told me about this book. So I just want to thank you for telling me about this book again. Wake up, everybody. The time is now. Wake up. I thank you. Thank you for joining me today, tonight, on this fantastic reading, live reading, The Science of Getting Rich, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Chapter 7, I will be reading very soon. I also would like to say, when I get to part 2 is chapter 8 of the book, I will be having special guests with me. So for all of you who are in the group, make a note, starting chapter 8, which is part 2 of the book, throughout, I will have special guests. For those people who already know that they want to be a special guest, please let me know which chapter resonates with you, and then we can set that up, okay? Thank you guys so much. Again, for the YouTubers, please be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share your comments below. And for everyone who's a part of the Facebook group here, please share your comments below. Share the video, share it with other like-minded individuals as well. I thank you for this. Thank God for Mr. Wallace D. Wattles and the Science of Getting Rich. I am AnneHumphrey, your transformational life coach and speaker, and also the creator of the Science of Getting Rich Mindset and Mastermind group here on Facebook. And again, for those people who are not a part of the Facebook group and would like to be a part of it, the links will be below if you're watching this via YouTube, but I will also say it here. It is www.facebook.com/groups/the Science of Getting Rich with Anne. And Anne is ANNE. ANNE. Okay? Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic one. Bye-bye. Wow. Phenomenal.